What if someone you love, someone who raised you, laughed with you, told you stories by the fire, was quietly slipping away, and you didn't even know it? No hospital alarms. No dramatic goodbyes. Just a series of quiet changes so subtle, most families miss them until it's too late. You might think you'd notice. But what if the end doesn't knock, it whispers? Today, we're going to reveal the 15 final whispers that could mean someone you love is preparing to leave this world. And by the time you see the last one, it might already be goodbye. He never missed a birthday. Not once. For 30 years, no matter where life took him, across states, through storms, hospital stays, or heartbreak, your father sent you a card. Sometimes funny, sometimes heartfelt, but always signed with the same shaky cursive and 3 words, "Love you always." It became routine, expected, even if unspoken. So when your birthday rolled around this year and the mailbox stayed empty, a chill crept in, not from the wind, but from something else. You shrugged it off at first, made excuses in your head, maybe the mail was delayed, maybe he forgot, maybe he's just tired. But deep down, something cracked. That small act, that missing gesture, was more than forgetfulness. It was a fracture in the rhythm of life. Because what most people don't realize is that the beginning of goodbye doesn't always come with a diagnosis or a hospital bed. Sometimes, it starts with silence. With a missed card. With a shift so subtle it feels like coincidence, until it doesn't. In that moment, you learn the first hard lesson of letting go. The things we take for granted often vanish without warning. So the next time a ritual is skipped, when a familiar voice doesn't call, or a tradition is broken, don't just brush it off. Pause. Pay attention. These quiet gaps are sometimes the only clues we're given before the storm. It was his throne, the big, worn recliner by the window, faded in the headrest, creaky in the joints, but sacred. Every morning at 7, your grandfather would be there, robe on, coffee steaming, muttering about the news or commenting on the weather like it was the most important bulletin of the day. That chair didn't just hold him, it held decades of habits, arguments, laughter, life. Until one morning, it didn't. You walked in and found the seat cold. No footsteps. No mug. Just stillness. He was in bed, not ill, not in pain, just resting. That rest became a pattern. Breakfast skipped, mornings spent under covers, and the recliner sat untouched like a relic. You told yourself he deserved the rest. He earned it. Maybe he was just slowing down. But the truth was harder, he was beginning to withdraw from the world that once grounded him. And the chair, the one constant in his universe, was no longer calling to him. Hospice workers will tell you this is common. They've seen it 1,000 times. The physical world loses its grip. The familiar becomes irrelevant. But for family, it feels like confusion. Why won't he come sit? Why won't he move around more? You suggest walks, fresh air, favorite shows. You beg. But it's not laziness, it's detachment. The body, when it senses the road ahead is shortening, starts shedding layers of routine. That chair, once a home base, becomes just another object. The lesson here is brutal but vital: don't drag them back into routines that no longer comfort them. Instead, join them where they are. Sit on the edge of their bed. Read to them. Bring the world to their side, not to wake them up, but to be with them in the way they need. When someone stops returning to the places they loved most, it's not a choice. It's a sign. And it means they need your presence more than your plans. It started over lunch, so casually you almost missed it. Your mother, who hadn't spoken much all week, suddenly leaned in and asked, "Did I ever tell you about the time I nearly ran away with a jazz musician in the 60s? You blinked, fork frozen midair. What? She smiled, mischievously, vividly, as if she'd been waiting decades for someone to ask. Over the next hour, the stories poured out. Childhood fights, love letters hidden in sock drawers, the scar behind her left ear from climbing the neighbor's apple tree. She spoke with a clarity you hadn't seen in months. The past didn't just return, it took over. At first, it was magical. You thought maybe she was getting better. Maybe her mind was sharpening again. But then the stories became more frequent, more urgent, as if she were racing a clock you couldn't see. And that's when it hit you, she wasn't reminiscing for fun. She was archiving. Leaving breadcrumbs. People in their final season often begin to relive, reprocess, and retell their lives in vivid detail, not to entertain, but to be understood. To finish business. To prepare. It's not nostalgia, it's legacy work. It's also a subtle cry for connection, a way of saying, see me. Remember me. Carry this when I go. You'll want to dismiss it, to steer her back to the present, to ask about dinner or meds or doctor visits. Don't. Stop. Listen. Record it, if you can. These moments are not idle chatter, they are sacred downloads from a soul preparing to depart. When your loved one begins living in the past, honor it. Don't pull them forward. Walk back with them. You might just discover the parts of their story you were never meant to miss. The old man was never sentimental, not really. He kept his Navy medals locked in a dusty box at the back of the closet, barely spoke about the war, never showed pride or nostalgia, until that afternoon. You just stopped by to bring groceries when he called you into the den and said, "These are yours now. You'll know what to do with them." You froze. The box was in his lap. His hands were trembling slightly. You opened it and stared. Rows of ribbons, a faded letter, a photo of 3 soldiers and a dog you'd never seen before. "I don't need them anymore," he said. "They belong with you now." It felt like an honor, a trust. But underneath, something else stirred, unease. It didn't feel like sharing. It felt like parting. This is something hospice nurses warn families about, the quiet transfer of treasures. Not junk, not stuff, they give away their story. The pocket watch from their father. The wedding ring of a spouse long gone. The coin they carried through 2 wars. At first, you think it's decluttering. But it's not. It's closure. A final act of agency. A whisper to the world, I'm wrapping things up. The mistake most people make is brushing it off or delaying. You don't have to give this away yet, they say, or worse, let's wait until you're better. Don't. Let them give. Let them bless. These are not just items, they are pieces of self. When your loved one starts gifting, don't see it as giving up. See it as trusting you with their legacy. And once it's in your hands, honor it. Tell their story. Carry it forward. Because sometimes, the things they give are the only words they have left. You've been bracing yourself for months. Watching them fade. Slow walks became no walks. Words became nods. The sparkle behind their eyes grew dim. You told yourself you were ready. You'd made peace with the decline. But then, suddenly, it shifted. One morning, they woke up smiling. Not faking it, radiating it. They sat up straighter, asked for pancakes, cracked a joke that made you laugh so hard you cried. For the first time in weeks, they looked like themselves. "I feel good today," they said. You dared to hope. Maybe it was a turning point. Maybe this was a miracle. But somewhere inside, you felt the contradiction. The nurses call it the rally. A last surge of energy. A final flicker of the flame before it goes out. It's real. It's radiant. And it's brief. Most families miss what it really is. They start planning outings, scheduling visitors, calling relatives with good news. But that moment isn't a beginning, it's a bow. A closing act. And if you're not careful, you'll waste it making plans for tomorrow instead of being present for today. The crusty lesson here is sharp. The body sometimes gives one last gift, a burst of lucidity, of peace, of connection, not to stay longer, but to say goodbye right. If this moment finds you, don't squander it. Cancel your schedule. Turn off your phone. Sit close. Let them speak. Ask the questions you were too afraid to ask. Tell them what you've been holding in. Let them go out knowing they were loved with full attention. Because this calm before the storm isn't false hope, it's sacred ground. And once it's gone, you'll never get it back. It starts subtly, with a murmur in the night. Then one morning, your mother tells you she saw her own mother standing at the edge of her bed. She looked young, she says softly. She smiled. I wasn't scared. You laugh it off, maybe even get spooked, but she doesn't seem afraid. In fact, she seems comforted. And then the stories begin. I dreamed of your father last night, she tells you, describing her late husband's voice in detail, recounting things no one else knew. She says she feels closer to him than to the people in the room. These aren't typical dreams. They don't fade after coffee. They linger. Vivid, unshakable. Some call them hallucinations. Others call them visitations. But whatever name you give them, one truth echoes across hospice centers and deathbed stories: the dying often begin to see the dead. Loved ones long gone. Familiar faces, once forgotten. They don't come with fear, they come with peace. It's as though the soul is tuning into another frequency, one foot already stepping toward the unknown. And if you're watching this unfold, it can be eerie, unsettling even. But the real danger is in dismissing it. You are dreaming, we say. That's just your meds talking. But what if it's more? What if the boundaries between this life and the next thin when the end draws near? The lesson here isn't about superstition, it's about reverence. Listen when they speak of these dreams. Ask questions. Let them tell you everything. These moments are often their way of processing the journey ahead, finding peace, and preparing to go. Don't pull them back to our world with logic. Step into theirs with compassion. Because when the dead return in dreams, the living are often preparing to say goodbye. It's strange at first. The woman who never missed a checkup suddenly says, I don't want to go anymore. You think she's being stubborn. Maybe tired. Then she starts skipping pills. You find full doses still in the organizer. I just forgot, she tells you. But deep down, you know. She didn't forget. She's choosing. Choosing silence over checkups. Peace over procedures. For most of her life, she fought appointments, treatments, prescriptions, clinging to the hope of one more year, one more summer, one more grandchild's graduation. But now, the fight is fading. And while it looks like giving up, it's not surrender, it's a declaration. It's her body saying, enough. Her soul whispering, let me rest. The cruel irony is that we, the caregivers, often respond by pushing harder. Let's go get checked. Just one more appointment. One more round. We plead with logic, with fear, with love, but rarely with understanding. We don't realize this resistance isn't a rebellion, it's a transition. A silent act of acceptance. When someone starts refusing help they used to embrace, it's not because they don't care. It's because their compass has shifted inward. They're no longer clinging to life, they're preparing to release it. The lesson here is heavy, but essential: don't fight their peace to preserve your hope. If they no longer wish to chase more time, honor their choice. Be with them. Sit in the discomfort of letting go. Because sometimes, real love means letting them leave on their terms, not ours. The Christmas cards arrive late this year. You flip through them, smiling at glittery trees and cursive greetings, until you reach the one from your uncle. His handwriting, once strong and swooping, is barely legible. His signature, usually bold, looks faint, crooked, incomplete. You show it to your spouse. Maybe he's just shaky, you say. But your gut knows better. The hands that built a shed, fixed cars, held newborns, now tremble holding a pen. And here's the thing no one tells you: before a voice goes silent, the handwriting often does. It's one of those subtle, heartbreaking clues that rarely gets discussed. Fine motor skills don't vanish overnight. They fade. Gradually. A signature that once defined them becomes a shadow. And it's not just a physical decline, it's symbolic. Their voice on paper, their unique imprint on the world, is whispering its final lines. You'll want to ignore it. You'll make excuses: arthritis, fatigue, maybe a bad day. But those strokes, those shaky lines, they mean something. They're part of the story. Don't throw that card away. Don't treat it like trash. Frame it, store it, read it aloud. Because that might be the last time their words reach you in their own hand. The hard truth is this: the things we overlook today often become the treasures we search for tomorrow. So if you notice their writing changing, take a breath. Let it sink in. And then let it guide you, not to panic, but to presence. Because when the pen falters, the heart may soon follow. Your father never apologized. Not when he missed your games. Not when he raised his voice. Not even when he was wrong, dead wrong. But last week, out of nowhere, he looked at you with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "I should have been better." You froze. Not because the words hurt, but because they healed. For the first time in your life, the man who held everything in was letting something out. And that moment, it undid you. People think deathbed apologies are like movie scenes, dramatic, poetic, rehearsed. They're not. They come in gasps. In half-finished sentences. In shaking hands reaching for yours. And they come for a reason. Because when the end draws close, the things we carried for decades, guilt, pride, shame, they get too heavy to hold. The soul, sensing its exit, begins cleaning house. And sometimes, that means breaking silence. Offering peace. Making amends. But here's the catch: you'll be tempted to shut it down. Don't worry about it, you'll say. It's all in the past. But don't. Let them speak. Let them finish. Because that apology isn't just for them, it's for you, too. It's a final gift. One last effort to mend the cracks before they go. The crusty truth? Some parents don't apologize until they're almost gone. But when they do, it's real. It's raw. It's sacred. If you're lucky enough to hear one, don't brush it aside. Absorb it. Remember it. Forgive, if you can. Because those words, spoken in the shadow of goodbye, are more than closure, they're redemption. She used to live for the holidays. Thanksgiving dinner was her Super Bowl. She'd wake up at 4 a.m. to prep pies and fight over who brought canned cranberry sauce. But this year, when you asked if she wanted to host, she just shook her head. Let someone else do it, she said, her voice flat. No spark. No recipes. No plans. You offered to help, tried to bring her in, you could just sit and direct us. But she shrugged. It's too much this year. You thought she was tired. Maybe depressed. But then she didn't ask about Christmas either. Or New Year's. Or the summer reunion she never missed. It hit you slowly: she's not planning for the future because she knows, deep down, she may not be in it. This is one of the hardest signs to see, and one of the most important. When a person who once lived by the calendar stops caring about dates, events, or traditions, it's not forgetfulness. It's emotional withdrawal. It's their internal compass realigning. They're no longer charting a course forward, they're looking inward, downward, homeward. And yet, it's so easy to misread this. We push them. Come on, Mom, it'll be fun. But fun isn't the issue. The journey is. The truth is, planning loses its meaning when the finish line feels close. What they need isn't a party, they need peace. They need permission to rest. To say no. To let go. So if your loved one stops talking about next month, next holiday, next anything, don't panic. Don't guilt them into participating. Instead, bring the moment to them. Light a candle. Sing their favorite carol. Let them watch, listen, be. Because maybe, just maybe, their last celebration isn't about planning, it's about presence. You hadn't seen her sit up straight in weeks. She'd barely spoken, barely eaten, drifting in and out of sleep like a leaf on water. But then one afternoon, just as you'd adjusted to the stillness, it happened. She woke up smiling, eyes wide open like sunrise through storm clouds. "I feel good today," she said with a voice that rang clear, almost young. She asked for a slice of peach pie. She talked about her high school prom. She laughed, real laughter, the kind that echoes in your bones. For a few brief hours, the room felt alive again. Hope cracked open your chest, and you dared to believe this was a corner turned. But what most families don't know, and often can't bear to admit, is that this last rally isn't a recovery. It's a farewell. Doctors have seen it 1,000 times. The body, in its final surge, gathers every remaining drop of vitality not to prolong life, but to close it well. It's as if the spirit takes the wheel for one last ride through memory lane before parking for good. This window, sometimes a few hours, sometimes a day, feels like a miracle. And in a way, it is. But it's not a new beginning. It's a sacred ending. Families who miss this mistake it for improvement. They start calling cousins, planning homecomings, prepping meals. But here's the crusty, gut-wrenching truth: the rally is not a restart, it's a benediction. So if you're lucky enough to witness this burst of life, don't waste it planning tomorrow. Be fully present today. Ask the questions you were too afraid to ask. Say the things you thought you had more time to say. Because this moment, this rally, isn't a second chance. It's a parting gift. You're sitting beside them, holding their hand, telling a story about the grandkids, and suddenly, they're no longer looking at you. Their eyes shift, not out of boredom, but as if they're watching something over your shoulder. A slow, serene smile touches their lips. "He was just here," they whisper, referring to someone long gone. "Your Uncle Joe." You blink. "Joe's been dead 10 years. He looked happy," they add, as if reporting the weather. You try to redirect, to pull them back, but they keep looking into that same spot, sometimes with wonder, sometimes with longing. You chalk it up to medication, hallucination, maybe even a misfire in the brain. But then it happens again. And again. And not just to your loved one, but to people in rooms across the country, across the world. Palliative nurses know this pattern well. They call it the thinning of the veil. As death approaches, it's not uncommon for the dying to begin seeing those who've gone before them. These aren't dreams. They happen in waking moments. And they're often accompanied by a strange calm, even joy. What we perceive as confusion may actually be clarity of a different kind, an early welcome from another place. The instinct is to shut it down, to ground them back into the present. But what if, instead, we leaned into it? What if we listened? Asked what they saw? The lesson here is haunting but beautiful. When their eyes shift past you, they may be seeing what we cannot. Don't fear it. Don't fight it. Let them look. Let them speak. Because maybe what lies beyond isn't darkness, but light, coming to carry them home. He carried bitterness like a badge of honor. For 40 years, your uncle refused to speak to his brother. Over what? No one even remembered anymore. But then, weeks before his body gave out, he asked for a phone. "I want to talk to Eddie," he said. You almost dropped your drink. He hadn't said Eddie's name in decades. "Just tell him I forgive him," he murmured. "And I hope he's okay." That was it. No drama. No long speech. Just a release. As strange as it sounds, the dying often make peace in the final stretch, not because time heals, but because time ends. And with that awareness comes clarity. Things that once felt worth fighting over crumble into dust. The weight of anger, held for decades, becomes unbearable when the body grows too weak to carry it. And so they let it go, not just for the other person, but for themselves. It's a kind of soul cleansing. A closing of open loops. Families often don't understand it. Why now, they ask. Why not years ago? But the dying don't operate on the same timeline. They're not looking back with regret, they're looking forward with intention. And forgiveness is one of the final freedoms they can give themselves. If you see your loved one making calls they never made, saying names they never said, forgiving people they once hated, don't interrupt it. Don't ask them to explain. Let them unburden. Because that act of release may be the final act of healing they ever do, and it may be the one that sets you free too. You hold their hand and notice it's cold, colder than it should be. Their feet too. You wrap them in blankets, bring socks, crank the heat. But the chill doesn't go away. Then you notice their skin. It's darker in spots, bluish, sometimes purple, around the nails, the knees, the lips. You panic. You think, circulation? Heart? Should we call someone? But here's the thing, this is the body doing what it was built to do. It's redirecting. Focusing resources on the core, letting go of the edges. It's a slow retreat from the physical world. And for medical professionals, these signs are not emergencies, they're milestones. The hands growing cool. The skin mottling. The pulse weakening. These aren't malfunctions. They're transitions. But for families, they feel like failures. Did I miss something? Should I have done more? No. You're not failing, you're witnessing. You're standing at the shoreline as the tide goes out. The hardest part is accepting that these signs don't mean fix it, they mean be with it. In our culture, we're trained to intervene, to repair, to fix. But at the end of life, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stay. Keep their hand warm. Wipe their lips. Speak softly. Don't treat the change as a crisis, treat it as a crossing. Because when the body begins to fade at the edges, the soul is often preparing to rise. It's quiet. Just you and your dad in the room. He hasn't said much in days. Then suddenly, he turns his head and says, "Promise me you'll take care of the boat." You blink. The boat? It hasn't left the dock in years. You want to laugh. You want to say, "Dad, don't worry about that right now." But something in his eyes stops you. It's not about the boat. It's about legacy. About closure. About one last thread he wants tied before he lets go. This happens more than people realize. In the final days, the dying often make one last request, not grand, not dramatic. Sometimes it's about feeding the dog. Sometimes it's watering the garden. Sometimes it's make sure she knows I love her. These aren't chores. They're final stitches in a life being sewn shut. And your job, the hardest job, is to take that request seriously. Not because of the task itself, but because of what it represents. Trust. Love. Letting go. When they ask for that last favor, what they're really saying is, I need to know something I love will live on after I'm gone. And if you fulfill it, if you carry it out with care, it becomes your way of saying, you mattered. You still matter. I've got it from here. So if someone you love makes one last ask, don't roll your eyes. Don't delay it. Write it down. Do it with your whole heart. Because someday, when you're looking for a way to feel them again, that simple act might be the closest thing to touching their hand.